All right. So first and foremost, I want to take the time to thank everybody, not just for taking the time to be here tonight, admins and players alike, also for taking the time to throw your questions, comments, concerns, and suggestions in. We got a lot of feedback, and that's pretty fucking fantastic. So thank you everybody for all of that. Um, I want to preface this by saying, first of all, we do have some people who asked either the same or similar questions or left the same or similar feedback. So if we don't read your what you sent to us, it's not that we're trying to ignore it. It's just that somebody else probably sent us the same thing or something similar. Thought I had to sneeze. Uh, with that said, I guess we just dip right in, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. So in no particular order, we're going to start off with Ella asked, "Can we consider leaving Genesis with no uploads? Some people can't bring overpowered blueprints or dinos into the map, download them so they can breed on other maps, but nothing coming in." This was a sentiment that was echoed by a few other people, and since it's similar, there was also people who asked the other question, be the other end of that spectrum, asking when will Genesis be open to transfer so we can take stuff in. This is obviously a discussion that's going to have to be had at length, both between the team and the community as a whole, because there's a lot of moving parts to this. Um, it might ultimately go to like a server-wide vote because it's a very big decision, but like, and I feel that this should go to the community as a whole. That said, I personally think keeping it locked down, even if it's just for a short period, keeps the challenge of the map intact, which is obviously something you would almost lose instantly if you opened it up to like transfers and then people could bring the Alex Rex line over and just throttle the bosses and clean the map out in like 5 minutes. Um, and if the decision was made wholly up to me, it's not, thankfully. I don't want that kind of pressure. Um, but if the decision was left up to me, I'd probably wait at least 3 to 6 months until after Genesis released before we have that discussion for opening transfers.
And may I
Sure, by all
interject
means.
here and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ask?
Take the floor.
And let's explain what we mean when we say the Alex Rex line. You guys, some of you are newer players.
Yeah.
Alex started that level of 500. What is it now? 60 Rexes that we have. The OP amazing Rexes that you see in everybody's base. Alex Rex spent every day for 2 years, morning and sometimes night. He would breed his Rexes,
Yep.
and he got them up to 530 before when he retired. He gave the line to the cluster. So he gave away eggs and stuff. So when we say Alex Rexes, they're all from that same line. So we're talking about these heritage animals, like the bright pink RGs and the overpowered Gigas. Those are all things we know would go over there first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. So it's not that we don't want you guys to be able to take your toys and play with them in all the places that are available. It's just we want to try and find a balance between letting you have that kind of freedom, but at the same time not diminishing the challenge of Genesis too early. It's all about finding that sweet spot and doing that balancing act. I hope that makes sense. I hope that and as I said, this is a discussion that has been and probably will continue to be ongoing for the foreseeable future. We absolutely want to include you guys in that discussion, and there are other aspects to it that we may be looking into. Um, Actually, I'm gonna skip ahead a bit to something we were just talking about because it's kind of leads off from that. I believe it was. I gotta scroll through my notes here. Hold on. Oh, where is it? Where is it? I think it was Frost actually posed an interesting question. Specifically, if I can find it. Like I said, you guys gave us a lot of questions and feedback here. Where is it? I should have organized these a little better. Bear with me,
All
guys.
people coming, okay, while you're doing that, all
Yep.
people coming in, if you are not an admin, we are server muting you. Please remember, when you are done, we'll try to get everybody. Please uh, make sure you are not server muted or you can't talk in chat.
Yeah, and for the people who came in here new and don't know why you're being muted, that's not being done because we don't want to hear from you guys. We will unmute everybody at the end of the chat to hear any questions or whatnot. We're just doing this so that this doesn't devolve into like a huge thing of 30 people trying to talk over each other, because then this is going to take forever. So, but Frostbite brought in a couple of questions that I thought were worth merit. The second of which is what applies to what we were just talking about. So I'll go ahead and go to that. Uh, is there any solution to base sizes on Genesis when it comes to breeders who are getting ready for boss fights? There isn't enough room to breed properly. It's going to take a long time when you can have only a few out at a time. Bows are hard to turn and huge. It's almost as long as a 20 by 20. So that's a valid concern. And it's one that's been raised before. And I'm going to peel back the curtain here just a little bit. But one of the things the admin team was talking about internally, and this goes back to other questions about future Patreon servers, would have been a Patreon only Genesis. And one of the that's been a topic of conversation. Um, Admittedly, we have had some concerns about if that would be viable long term in the sense of maintaining player count, because some of our longer term players here remember how that worked out for Extinction. That peaked, and then it's the player base fell off a cliff. We wouldn't want to do that with Genesis if the novelty is going to wear off. At least we wouldn't want to commit to doing that to Genesis if the player base is going to fall off. But that being said, the idea was pitched just earlier today actually to the team about instead of having a second Patreon Genesis map, if we were to introduce a second public Genesis map with the restriction of not being able to build in the mission areas lifted, which would allow players to build in those mission areas and therefore have bigger bases. And then the second thought would be to make it so these two Genesis maps have full transfer functionality between the two of them. So you could, in theory, build a base on this new Genesis map that has bigger base limits, and you could breed your stuff over there, send it over to the one with smaller ones, and do the missions over there. That seems, on paper at least, like it would be a way to service both masters. So I would love to hear what you guys, the players, think about that idea. Obviously. So again, if you guys want to throw your thoughts on any of this stuff in or which channel did we settle on in
General.
general chat? So, and if any point you guys have feedback on what we're talking about, please drop that stuff in general chat as we're going, because we are monitoring that.
Froppy, the only thing I have against blueprints is if we enable the transfer of items, people can cryo dinos and then bring them over like that.
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
big
they
thing.
count as items instead.
If we didn't have cryos, there's no way to enable just BPs.
Not without mods, I don't think.
Enable items or
Nope, it's either all or nothing as
And
far as
Yeah.
items go.
Yeah. But
And it does take a lot to run these servers. It really does. Some people don't understand. I don't even understand, and I've been trying to figure it out for 2.5 years now.
and we'll touch more on that in just a moment. But while we're here on Frostbite's question, I do want to touch base on the other part of the question he asked. Hold on. I think a lot of us have expressed that we'd like to have a Pat Gen server, but I understand the whole no one plays. Yeah, that's part of the thing to consider as well. Exactly.
That's also, we've also talked about taking that idea of a Pat Gen or just a second public gen or something and putting it to a vote server wide and letting people decide what they want or what they wouldn't.
On what Miguel said about allowing the transfers, that's another thing about what Nass said. We were going to continue discussing it. At some point, we may need to do a poll on this to see if the majority want the transfers or if not. Because if the majority don't want transfers in, it might stay disabled. We don't know. Right now, we're just still discussing it.
Especially because if only one person, like one set of people defeats the alpha boss and nobody else does, then that still kind of ruins it for everybody else if everybody else wants to have that shot at doing it themselves without having to get dinos from everybody else.
Exactly.
So it would ultimately come down to more than likely a public vote, just like we did before with Extinction and when we asked if you guys would open it.
And Aberration.
Maybe we actually post a poll after the Q&A. I can come up with a poll for that and I'll post it so that way we can start getting feedback about if the server wants predominantly transfers or not. Is that okay?
Yeah, that would work.
I think that sounds agreeable. Yeah, definitely.
Even if it comes down to the fact that this isn't done 3 or 4 months before we finally come to a decision, it's better to start getting information now so we can look at it, because you never know if Wildcard's going to break something.
Every update.
Because who knows? Next patch they may break it and accidentally turn on transfers, and we can't turn it off.
That's a good shout too, Ozzy. That's a good shout. The problem might be, like most people who might vote to enable transfers don't even play on Gen, so that's also.
Yeah.
I feel like the way to do that, then we probably what would do is, if it's possible, Zaf, could you whip up a poll or something on the website where people or the forums would have to log in, and we could actually like track who votes that way, so that it can't just be like a straw poll where anybody can like cheese the votes.
What do you mean where they can only vote once, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's easy. For Google, you can do a form where they can only vote once.
Maybe we should think about they have to be a resident of Genesis.
Yeah, I think that's what Blue Ozzy was saying, is somehow to verify that they
and we can
put in
discuss
enough time there.
we can internally discuss the semantics of how to do that fairly later. That's not something we need to waste everybody else's time here with. But yeah, that's a good shout.
point.
That's a good shout, Ozzy. We will
Yep.
put our heads together, see if we can figure out with the poll exactly. Chief, get out of my head.
I'm gonna start making notes, just other admins, so you guys know, of
Go
like
ahead.
to
Yeah.
do later kind of list.
Thank you for that. Real quick before we move on to the next question, I want to answer Frostbite's second question because he hit us with two. Is there any way we could talk about having teleports outside of our base? We're already restricted. I get why, but allowing us to have teleports outside of the 20x20 or 10x10 would make things easier. I totally get that. We can't give you guys a set answer on that right now because again, this I think question was either just submitted yesterday or today. That's something we can look at and talk to, and I would love feedback from the community as a whole on that. I think we all would, but that's something we can definitely consider, and it's on the radar. I can tell you that. My knee-jerk reaction is I'm not inherently opposed to it. Again, I just worry about space. If we do go down the road with like the 2 public Genesis server thing, that wouldn't be as big of an issue. So it's definitely something to discuss.
Yeah, I see all of your points coming up in general. That yes, Helena is a teleporter, but if you're not right there on a teleport, which is you have to walk and it's dangerous, and Helena does steal your dinos. I see both sides. Something we will have to work on.
Yep. And that's why I said the discussion is ongoing. Another part of that is also because we've all seen Wildcard is still trying to fix their broken shit. Who all still having problems with the Ferox? Raise your hand. Show of hands.
Shit, Chief was doing a lot of testing earlier on how broken it was. It kept changing IDs and stuff.
Like, if you're still having issues with the Ferox, just type hand in general right now. I want to see a show of hands.
Several people are typing.
Yeah.
typing.
So that's a thing.
All right. Moving on to the next question here. Cookie asks, will there be a Crystal Isles map on the cluster? Long story short, based on our previous track record, I want to say almost assuredly yes. That being said, we have heard through the grapevine of people who are able to more closely monitor things like that by being in other discords or whatnot with the devs who developed that mod originally. There's apparently going to be some cuts to that map, so we're going to be monitoring the progress and details of the map as it gets closer to release. And as we know more, we'll be able to make a more informed decision and therefore be able to relay that to you guys more successfully. So, as it relates to a Crystal Isles map, I think right now we can safely say the intent is we would like to do one, but we're not willing to commit to one at this time. I personally would love to see one.
Yeah, me too.
Essentially, look at it this way. What you see as Crystal Isles isn't going to be what they give us. It's the same as Val, where they nerfed the fuck out of that.
Yep.
They took away a lot of the natural spawns, like some of the aberrant stuff. They cut out a lot of things. That's essentially what's going to happen to Crystal Isles, so we don't know what Crystal Isles is going to be yet.
Yes. All right.
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know what they're calling Crystal Isles.
Exactly.
So, moving on to the next question here. Undead Tank asked I'm going to paraphrase this because I love you, Undead Tank, but you wrote a little bit of a book here, so I'm going to paraphrase. Asking about what steps we could take to solve the lag on the servers. And admittedly, I am far from being a guy who understands a lot of the back-end technical standpoint on this kind of stuff. I know how to tame anything in Ark, but you ask me how to code or do anything on the back end of a server, unless you want me to set it on fire, you need to talk to somebody else. But one person who knows infinitely more than me is Kakowin. He's a fucking wizard at this, and this is his house. So, and he actually gave us some comments on this stuff directly about a week ago that I would like to share with you, some of the feedback and some of the misconceptions about the back-end stuff of the server. So, and these are all directly from him, and I'm going to quote. Regarding dead dinos being saved forever, that's simply not true. While it is true that the names of up to 10 parents are saved as part of a dino in-game in order for them to be displayed in the user interface of the game client, but the dinos themselves are gone once they're dead. The only reason why the website can show them is because it builds its own separate database. The next thing is if we move dinos in and out of the server and then wipe in between, the server won't be as laggy. That is also not true. The server FPS is mostly affected by alive dinos that are close to players. So that's just it. It's the dinos are the problem. It's not like the back end server files that have been stored, because those aren't affecting it. Now, crinoing dials helping against lag, that's partly true. Ark is surprisingly well capable of keeping a save clean. The island saves hasn't been growing for years, except for that one patch when everyone could cryo their dinos. That initial burst after they introduced cryopods. Even though the dinos are cryoed, they're still loaded into the game on server startup and saved with every world save, causing more and more save lag. Simply put, more dinos, whether out in the world or in cryo, mean a bigger save file, which means more lag when it's saving. Wildcard traded server lag, which is CPU usage, with save lag, memory or disk usage there. S Plus already had this feature before Ark added, which is why servers with S Plus were already quite heavy to run. Beyond that, rendering issues with rendering in big bases. I know how some of you guys like to build big stuff. Dre, if you're here, I'm looking at you. It's usually a client-side issue. The Unreal Engine, which Ark is built on, limits the maximum network speed a client can use at 30 kilobytes a second, I believe, and can only send so many objects per second over a connection. What that means in layman terms is that even if you have like a 1 gigabyte per second internet connection, even if you have super fast internet, Ark is hard coded to only let you have 3 megabytes at the most because of the engine they ran. It's that simple. There's not a whole lot we can do with base rendering. It's just how Ark is hard coded.
That actually goes back to the UE4 engine and how they handle graphics and the build pieces. And it's antique, and we have no way to fix it.
Yeah. So if you guys would like that fixed, I would encourage you to tweet at Studio Wildcard and tell them to fix their shit, because it's unfortunately nothing we can do. They have to fix their damn game.
But here's a new DLC instead.
Yeah, right. Par for the course. Now, where was I?
Going on real quick, Nast, about dinos that are either cryoed or on the map.
Yes.
I just want to put this in perspective real quick.
Okay.
So, PubRag currently has almost 13,000 dinos in cryo and 4,600 outside of cryo. Now, we all know how much PubRag lags, but have you ever gone to Scorched Earth and how it seems so nice and peaceful? Well, that's because they have 800 total dinos on the map. So that right there will show you that, yes, SE is not as laggy as PubRag, as PatRag, as all the popular maps, Island included. So maybe if we want to fix the lag, maybe we can go through and kind of get rid of dinos that we're not going to use. Like I went through and purged a bunch of stuff on PatRag because I just didn't use them anymore. There was no point for me to have them.
Undead, we are limiting the number of dinosaurs. Each tribe only can have 500. And actually, I was going to bring that up. Now would be a good time to dig through all those lovely cryopods that everybody has.
Yeah.
Dig into the back of your cryo fridge and pull out those dinosaurs and shoot them in the face.
Because here's the thing, guys, and I know this is going to seem like we're trying to pass the buck here, but we're not, because this goes to everybody, admins, players, Patreons, everybody. At the end of the day, we as the admin team can make all the rules we want. We can try and lower tame limits and put all these regulations we want. We could, right now you're allowed to have 250 tames. If we cut that down to 100, a tribe of 3 is just going to split into 3 allied tribes of 1 so they can have 300 tames. That's it.
Right.
At the end of the day, this entire thing stems, the majority of the lag on the servers comes from the fact there are simply too many creatures. And if we want to fix that as a community, we have to hold each other and ourselves accountable, and we have to work together to do that. And if you want a perfect example of that, right now, what every single one of you could do, and I would challenge you to do this, because I know nobody goes over there any other time. Right now, right now, go over to Scorched Earth, where collectively, altogether, there are less than 1,000 dinos on the entire map, out and cryoed both, and tell me how much less laggy it is. And you can see firsthand why we're talking about this.
And you guys can see why I like Center, because Center is also, it's kind of got a few things, but that's why I like it. It's dull, it's boring, as Nas puts it.
So
But yes, go through cryopods. Do not donate them to the CC.
now I will say one other thing. I understand that a lot of that, like some of you guys, especially on Island, have taken to doing the bosses yourselves outside of us, and you need Rexes to do that. And I absolutely get that. That nobody wants to spend like 30 minutes uncryoing a whole bunch of Rexes and waiting for them all to wake up to get cryo sickness to go do the boss. So it's just easier to leave them out rendered. I totally get that. And yes, I'm recording all of this, Frost. One thing that if they ever get around to implementing it, and this is another thing I would like you guys, if you have Twitter, go tweet a wildcard about this. You can bet money that the day wildcard gives unofficial servers an option to disable cryo sickness, we are going to fucking have that turned off. Period. Because that would help immensely. That would solve it.
All right.
All right.
I'm going to take this moment real quick. If you are just now coming in, if there's a few stragglers, we are server muting you so that we can listen to the admins. When you get ready to leave, please let us know in general. We will unmute you. You can go on your.
And if you have questions, just type them in general. We're watching that chat.
Yes.
Right. And if you do get rid of your dinos, like I said, wyverns do a good job. Feed them to a gotcha. Throw them cryosic, throw them into lava. That's my favorite way to get rid of them.
They're
Just,
probably
we all have those dusty cryopods that, I'll get to them in a month or two.
there probably is a mod for it, Nibbler, but we don't put mods on the public servers because every time we've ever had a poll on it, people overwhelmingly did not want mods on them because of the load.
And not even just because of the load times, because even the best mods will sometimes just not be inactive or have a period of time where the dev can't update them after an update, because we all know how often Arc likes to update this game. That's a perfect example is with S Plus. There was a while back where that mod didn't get updated for like 2 or 3 days after an update, and it caused things to be deleted on some maps, like building parts just vanished. Can you imagine the shit show we'd have had if we'd have had that on ours? That's why we don't put mods on the public. So we need Wildcard to put that option in the game for disabling cryo sickness. And I know it's on their to-do list. They have a quality of life sheet, and that's on there. They just got to get out their asses and do it and stop releasing DLC. But I digress.
That doesn't make them money.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll step off my soapbox on that now. Moving on to the... Oh, go ahead.
Wait, before we do, just that other issue about lag that Kakoan
Sure.
brought up about hoarding mats.
Yeah.
Was that, I mean, I remember kind of asking that when we were talking about this earlier. Is that something that we agreed would help, or is that sort of a non-issue?
I don't think materials are as much the issue because they don't
Okay.
actually have a render thing. They're just like a number counter that sits somewhere.
Yeah.
The big issue is with the creatures, I think.
Okay. Yeah. just
Well,
clarifying.
one of the problems that you have with hoarding mats, as they were talking about, is what I believe it was Tank brought up earlier, is the actual harvesting. When somebody is out actively harvesting on some dinos, it can create a momentary lag on the server.
Yep.
And what happens is a good example of this is, say everybody is on the event map and you are currently doing 1,600 per byte on your dinos against the boss, correct? When you unhud and let all those tick up, those lag the server down right then and there. And you have to give the server time to actually clear itself, clear its cache. So this is where the problem occurs. It is not a full-time lag, like it lags it for 4 or 5 hours after you've been harvesting. It is a momentary lag. So I'll shut up and get out of the way now.
You're fine, dude. All right, and moving on to our next question. And again, this is another one that I'm going to paraphrase on because they had a full explanation and a lot of what they said is valid, but this is already dragging on here a bit, so I'm just going to ask the question. Will we have a wipe? And some other people asked some version of this question as well. Before we go into this, I want to preface that there are currently no plans to do a wipe in any way, shape, or form. I say that specifically and plainly to try and not incite a panic just because I said the word wipe. Now, this has been a discussion that has literally been going on in DomiNATION for as long as DomiNATION has existed. That's also been one of the appeals as to why we've attracted as many players that we have over the years, because we don't wipe. That's been a huge appeal for some people, and it has admittedly also been a detriment, and something has pushed other people away. And there's a lot of arguments that have been made on both sides, both for and against wipes. And I fully understand, I think the entire team fully understands that no matter what you do, you can't make everybody happy all the time. And no matter what we decide to do on this, you're going to wind up making some people angry or upset, and some people will quit. That's just the fact of the matter. With that being said, and I want to preface this with one more thing, is that from day one, DomiNATION has never wiped. And it started out with that when it was just one map with one admin, and a fraction of what we have now. No patrons, nothing. And it has since then blown up to something bigger than I think anybody ever expected it to be. With that has come a lot of growing pains. And with that, especially recently, has come the realization that there are certain things that we never thought would be an issue that now are, that we may have to address and we may have to change. And those will, of course, bring out more growing pains. But, Grandpappy Admin Nest, you shut your mouth, Shifty. But for the betterment of everything involved on the server, I think we may have to do this. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have a short list. I shared this with the admin team earlier today. The discussion there is still ongoing, and we want to have this discussion with you guys as well. So the short version of the long proposal is simply this, as to how we could go about making Domi better and not have to resort to having full wipes. So first and foremost, we need to rebalance some of the rates. I say some. We need to have a discussion about, and this goes back to what Alfie mentioned a moment ago, about how some dinos that have been bred and are super, super OP can cause the server to lag because they harvest so much. A counterbalance to that is if you lower the harvest rates a little bit, they're not harvesting as much, the server doesn't lag as hard. So we need to balance, we need to nerf some of the rates on some servers, maybe even buff them on others, and get them more compatible and comparable and similar across all maps. One thing I will preface is that we are not talking about adjusting anything to do with the breeding and the hatching rates. Those are good where they are. We don't want to make you guys have to wait 3 days to raise a giga. That's asinine. We're not doing that. The other big thing we're talking about doing with this, and some of you longtime players are familiar with this term, we have been talking about doing staggered Exodus-style annual wipes. And if you don't know what that means, I'll quickly lay out a very tentative timetable. Let's say we wanted to have one of these Exodus-style wipes on, say, the island. Everybody in-game and in the Discord would be given a full month's notice saying, hey, in 1 month, this map is going to be deleted. Everybody would then have a 2-week window where they would be able to start preparing dinos for transfers and harvesting materials, crafting items, packing stuff up. After that 2-week period it ended, we would set up a new whitelisted island map. That map would be given a 24-hour whitelist for the patrons to get in and set up exactly one base. We only do that because they get the head start. They're patrons. They make all of this possible. They get 24 hours to go in and set up one single base. After that 24 hours, it's open to the public on the whitelist. Everybody else can go in, and during the remaining 2 weeks, set up one base. After that 2 weeks is over, we wipe the old island. The new island becomes the new island, and we move on from there. That's the basic idea. And we do this for every map. Pad servers, that's a good question if that would apply to that. That's a hard question. That's something
now,
we'll talk with the
I think we
patrons.
discussed this
We did?
while you were away.
Okay.
Alfie said that we would have to talk to Kakoan and see what maps were the heaviest heaviest usage, and we could go by then and say, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe Rag is up there because it is always popular. But we know, go by list. SE,
Okay.
be down there somewhere at the end.
Island's also old as shit, so that would
Yes,
be a good-
Island.
Yeah, that's why I
Island
used
is
Island
like
as an example.
4 years
And
old.
that's a good
Another
shout.
thing as well, Caquin also said wipes are not necessarily going to fix the lag on the servers because we're going to have the same number of people over there bringing those dinos over and building their bases up and everything. So it's going to end up being the same type of render lag that people already have currently.
Potentially.
So that is something to think about as well.
Potentially.
That's also a period where we could look at the rules and say, hey, why don't we reduce base sizes or increase base sizes, less dinos, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we can.
Based on how things work.
We can make
because
those adjustments.
It would also get rid of all the old player files of people who no longer play and their characters still exist in the files.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You gotta think of how many people have logged into Island over the course of the last 3 years for 5 minutes and never logged in.
I can actually tell you that because I have that number in front of me. Would you like to know exactly how many people have ever logged into the island before?
Oh dear.
18,208.
And I bet you we get 300 a week?
Oh, more than that. 300 noobs a week, maybe.
That is
yeah.
That is 18,000.
There has been
300
there has been
players.
845,462 dinos ever on Island.
But the point is, getting back to what we were talking about, and you bring up a great point about how that may not clean up a ton of back-end data, but what that would do is, as was said a second ago, it would give us a chance to revise rules about base size and things that we had set from day one and haven't ever had to change or had an option to change. It would also clean up all these structures, these little campfires that are hidden in bushes that we're never going to fucking find. Those are gone because they don't auto-decay. It's not going to solve all the issues, but I feel like annual staggered wipes like that would do more good than harm. And that's why that discussion is going to be ongoing. And we would love you guys' feedback on that. Also, I asked this because my Discord has been fucking up on me lately. Can anybody hear me? Or did my Discord mess up? Okay.
Oh, you're good.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
fine.
I hate those awkward pauses. Okay.
All right.
So yes, I
put up a thing.
Go ahead,
I
Alfie.
put up Zai put up a thing about the Rexes, and it was brought up earlier. Those of you guys that are doing the boss fights, good on you that you're doing them.
Yes.
But once you're done, and once you've beaten all 3 bosses on Island, on Rag, on whatever you're living and you're doing these, could you do us a favor and cryo the critters all up? That will reduce some of this lag problem that we have on the thing.
My biggest issue is, and the admin team knows because this is my big pet peeve, and not everybody does it, but Joe Blow and his Beach Bob buddy, they log in, they get these Rexes, they get their 550 level Rexes. They get the next day, there is 20 of them in their yard named Boss 1, Boss 2, Boss 3. Those Rexes will never see the inside of a boss arena. So it's like, if you guys name them boss, they better be going into the boss arena.
Well, again,
So-
and I don't want to be someone who's telling you guys how to play the game or what to do with your stuff. I'm asking you to consider leaving those boss Rexes out there and the lag that's putting on the servers and on everybody else. So, I mean, and again, it goes back to if Wildcard would get off their asses and make it so we could disable cryo sickness, you could store those Rexes when you're not using them and not have to spend an hour getting them all out. And I get that. That sucks, but it's just, we have to work together to find solutions for a lot of these things. That's the big takeaway from this.
Right. And like I was saying, my big thing is, with the Rexes, we're working to try to keep, like I said, the beach bobs from getting these insane levels, because all they're going to do is breed. I saw a tribe today. I kid you not. It's a single player. He has 70 Rexes. Why do you need that many? He's not really breeding them because they're both. All of them are those high mutation.
And how long has he been
If
playing
all
on the
of you-
server?
He's played 3 weeks and he has over 620 dinos.
So something to think about when you guys do these bosses, and like I said, we're all for you doing your own bosses. But if you're using the 500 Rexes, you only need 10. I'm serious. I've been doing this a long time. I've done the events longer than anybody but Nast. And you only need about 10 of those 500 Rexes to kill the island boss.
All right. Any objections to moving on to the next question? Because we still got a little bit of ways to go here, everybody.
Nope, sounds good.
All right. So I'm going to butcher this probably, and I apologize in advance if I do. Detengineer asks a few questions. Are we snipping the tips, and can we vote on it? I'm not sure what snipping the tips means. Is that some slang for something?
Neutering.
Neutering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
clipping, neutering, spaying.
Gotcha. Never heard snipping the tips before. That's a new one. That conversation is still ongoing, and is something we're gonna have to have collectively. So, can we vote on it? Yeah, of course. Well, what'll happen with it? Jury's still out. We'll find out.
Right. And we're always going to have that one tribe that doesn't pay attention to the Discord or won't listen and go against, and that's okay. We can't tell you guys how to play the game.
Yeah. All right. Next question that Detingineer, I hope I'm saying that right, asked: if I subscribe but want to stay in the public servers or jump between both, can I? Of course. If you're a Patreon, you can absolutely go wherever you want on any of the servers. We're not gonna tell you what to do. Next thing. Knowing the community is very generous and friendly, is it possible to create a universal price list that must be followed? I appreciate the work that would entail. It just seems like it wouldn't be as effective without some sort of structure in place. The only problem you're going to run into with that is some people, not everybody's put the same amount of time into like their breeding lines, and it's going to be so hard to figure out what a fair metric would be to everybody. You know what I mean? Especially with all the different types of creatures and stuff out there. So that's a conversation that could be had, but there's a lot of moving parts to that could make it very difficult.
Yeah, I think the key word we would want to take out there is must. Like Zelena was saying, we're not going to micromanage. We're not a communist regime, so we're not going to try to tell you guys what to do. But if people have questions or want suggestions, we all have opinions. But that's the thing. I think that the server is better when we all put our heads together for what's best for the server versus it always being top down.
Yep. And again, that goes back to us not wanting to tell you guys how to play the game. We don't want to force you to be like, well, you're selling this, so you have to sell it for X price. That's not we don't want to have to micromanage that much, because then not only is it not fun for us, it's less fun for you.
Yeah. We become the bad guys. We don't want that.
So again, this whole thing about breeding and selling clipped or unclipped, that entire thing is something that for the thank you, Zixon. That for the betterment, for the benefit of the entire cluster, we are all gonna have to figure out together. It's not gonna be like flipping a light switch. It's not gonna be a quick, short thing, but I believe we can get there together, and we'll work on that together. I should have gotten water. My voice is getting bad. All right, next question
Right.
here. Right?
Well, you can take a moment. Yeah,
Yeah, probably-
Silver
I'm good.
Spinos are 9K. My Brontos are 10 to 12K. And
All right.
we've been told daily, like every time we put them up, why so much? I had somebody custom order a Bronto. He wanted it particular colors and everything. And then I delivered it and told him it was 12K because it came with an Ascendant saddle. And he went, oh, that's too expensive.
Kit, yeah, there isn't. It's not a per se rule, but and Silver, if you want to actually explain your thought process on this, why we feel, why certain members of the team feel it's detrimental to the health of the server to sell things, especially OP bred things, unclipped.
Yeah,
yeah.
I can kind of clarify a little bit there. So
Please,
there's a
by all
couple.
means.
There's a lot of different reasons. It fluctuates depending on the person. One of the main reasons, though, is how readily available that dino suddenly becomes. All they need is one unclipped OP dino and a lesser version of that OP dino, and within a day, they can recreate your entire line that you took months working on. And then suddenly they have reached endgame very quickly. They breed up 20 of these. For example, let's just say the Rexes. And then they label them as boss Rexes and then never actually go and do the bosses.
Well,
because they basically had all of early game given to them. Sorry, Zai.
That goes back to what I was saying is Joe Blow gets these two Rexes from, the CC does not doing that anymore. Everything coming out of the CC is now clipped because we are working with them.
And Viking,
evolve.
what he just said about completing the line, they don't do that because they don't actually learn the initial breeding mechanics of getting the stats, combining the stats, and then figuring out actual breeding. They just breed them together, not realizing that you have to have, clean dinos to continue the mutation line on. It's very difficult for people who they don't understand the game. They don't understand the breeding aspect. Suddenly they get OP dinos and then they don't know how to continue them.
Yeah, if I can add that in too. I mean, this is something that everybody knows, but I don't know that they think about. The fact that this is a sandbox game means that it's up to you to figure out how you organize your forward progression versus a linear single player game or something like that. So you can decide if you want to be sort of action hero and do bosses or more of a breeder. But the fact is, this was a game that was never designed with going through a bunch of dungeons and going through a bunch of leveling. There's everything that you need to do it's grindy. It's a game that's meant to be grindy. And so if you take away elements of that grind, you have taken away ultimately the muscles of the game. You have a skeleton left and it's empty and it's not as fun. And I know some people are like, no, that's great. No, I don't need that. That's not what makes it fun for me. That's the same thing as a kid saying like, no, I want to eat that whole box of ho-hos. I love it. You're going to feel sick at the end and not know why.
And that's what I'm saying is we are strongly suggesting you guys do it because I've seen it, and this was back when the CC was in its infancy and giving out eggs. Somebody got 2 eggs from the CC. They happened to be male and female. They bred them, and then the very next week at the same yard sale they got those eggs from, they were selling the same animals. No improvements, nothing. They were literally just hatch the egg, put a for sale sign on it.
And that's the second reason, because the first reason that I mentioned, that was just one reason. What Zai just said is the second reason why it's important to look at potentially clipping your dinos, is because somebody maybe will start suddenly randomly improving your line, and then they're outselling you now. So all those months, or even like somebody said, years spent getting those dinos to that level are suddenly being outdone by somebody else.
If I may chime in.
And it's personal. Okay, Mask.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if I may jump in here, because Kit's saying he doesn't understand. I also want to mention, Miguel, Kit, I see you guys also saying, so why give eggs for free? Why donate those eggs? That's a great point. It's something we've already considered and are talking with the friendos in the CC about adjusting what eggs are given away there. And it goes back to the point I want to make about, and hopefully try to help you understand this, Viking, and anybody else, or I'm sorry, Kit, help you understand this, as well as anybody else who's not fully getting the point we're trying to convey here. Let me give you an example. Because let me ask you a question before I give you an example here, really quick, if I may. But on the island, when you see the name of the island server in your server list in Ark, DomiNATION Beginners PvE. I want to show of hands here. How many people found us because they heard we were a beginner-friendly server? How many people first came and discovered DomiNATION because you were new to the game, you were looking for a good place to play, and you wanted to learn, and you found us here? I know I did.
This has been and was my first server.
Okay. The point I want to get at here is simply this. If you're a new player and you're wanting to learn the game, you are done a disservice if your first day as a level 7 Beach Bob, you were handed the keys to the kingdom and given like a level 400 whatever Alex Rex. Because then you just skipped through like 80% of the game in terms of what you needed to do.
You skipped the knocking out of the trike to get the berries, to get more narcotics, to tame the Pteranodon, to tame the raptor, and then to tame the RG and the Rex. You're just skipping all of these levels.
Exactly.
And quite frankly, we've actually had a couple of people come forward and say that they were essentially forced to take some free gifts.
Because it was like dropped on their door.
Yeah, and
what are they going to do?
Oh, we don't want to trade anything for it. Just keep it. And they suddenly feel, I can't say no to this. I have to take it.
And Jay, that goes back to us not wanting to have to play the game for you. This is the thing, and this is why we're not passing any rules right now, trying to mandate you guys have to do this. This is why we're talking to you and having the conversation with you and trying for all of us to figure out a way to do this. Because there's so many moving parts to this whole thing. We absolutely have to try and find a way to balance the rights of breeders and their rights to do with the creatures as they want.
Exactly what London just said.
But at the same time, not hurt the server
became
as
a
a
monster we could not control.
I do want I want to respond to some of the dissension in chat, because I think it's important that everyone feel heard. So like there's Undead and Rhino and Yurgig who are talking about like coming here from official and wanting to skip some of the grind. And I think we totally hear that because we do have all of these boosted rates. I mean, the fact is,
Yeah.
without the OP dinos, this is still a way easier game.
Very easy.
You're still taking out so much of the grind. We've cut the grind. I would say. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong.
What
Please
grind?
do. Like, yeah, like we've cut the grind in half. We're just trying not to completely gut the difficulty of the game.
Yeah.
When I joined almost 2 years ago now, I think it was the end of April 2 years ago. I was given an RG. That was it. I was given one RG and it was an event tame. It was not any of the OP RGs. Even that was a little too much. I realized it now. And it took me about a week to get fully established. I had a stone base or whatever. It took me another week to realize that the admins ran events. And then the third week, I went to that event, got element, and I started setting up like my teleporter and stuff. That's without these OP dinos. Imagine a player coming in, getting these OP dinos day 1 or 2, and suddenly within a week they're like, well, I've got these 20 Rexes. What do I do with them?
But I guess yeah.
And then it comes to us cleaning up.
Yes, we
a
clean
week
up
later.
a lot of these dinos, named adoptable, free, boss.
Gift.
We cleaned up so much that you guys do not see.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that is absolutely a fantastic shout. I already forgot who pointed out, but like pointing out Rhino and other people who came here, because this game, like it was said, it's a sandbox. It's different things for different people. Some people like, there's so many different things you can do in so many different aspects of this game. Everybody gets enjoyment out of different things. The thing we all need to try and work together on as a community is finding a way to make sure that everybody has easy access to those things. Some people want that challenge. Some people want the grind, and they want to be like how everybody's been going through Genesis, where you have to scratch and fight and claw for everything you get. Nothing is given to you. And if we just have this OP line of Rexes out there in the wild that anybody can get for dirt cheap or for free, then that takes that away from those people. That's the point.
Right.
We as a community need to figure out a way to service all these masters.
To balance. And that is the hardest thing.
And that's a fair point, Viking. They do it themselves to self-control. But I want an honest opinion here. How many people here, if you were offered a gift, would turn it down, because or would not turn it down because you didn't want to be seen as being rude or ungrateful? I know
I
I
actually would get yelled at as a child whenever I said no, thank you. Even if I was polite about it, I would get yelled at because you should be grateful for anything that's given to you.
How many animals do I
in the chat,
have
good
that
lord.
are gifts? Because all right, well, hang on. Going back to what you guys enjoy most about your ARC experience. What is it that keeps you guys logging back in day after day?
As Froppy said it, Gone Fearless, a lot of people are saying some cultures it is rude to say no to a gift, so it is ingrained into them that if somebody offers them something, they have to take it.
I'm sorry, everyone's typing that they would, oh no, I wouldn't take it. I would say no. I would drown it. Okay, every single one of those people, is that what you do on a regular basis? All of those people, like seriously, legit, you never took a free high-level dino and then just made more of it. Like, if that's the case, like none of you are taking and breeding these dinos, like honestly, that's really awesome. Like I'm really impressed.
That's pretty impressive.
That's a lot of people.
So.
But I have a feeling at least maybe half of the people who just said like, oh, it's easy to say no, or I would kill it or drown it. I'm guessing at least half of you have taken that Rex and you're like, yeah, that's something I won't breed now.
All right, I'm going to pop in here for a minute because Papa Smurf just reminded me of something. It's at this time I'd like to mention one of our sponsors for this podcast, Blue Apron.
Wait, what?
All right, let's see. Where is Nast on the mute list?
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
I did it.
But as I said, I'm going to move on to the next question here. But that is there's a lot we just talked about. There's a lot to unpack there, and I know this is dense, and I'm sorry for that. But there's a lot of big things, as DomiNATION has gone through all these growing pains, that we as a community will have to sit down together and figure out a solution for. And it's not going to be like flipping a switch and solving it overnight. But I believe in this community. I believe that together we are all smart, or at least creative enough to fake it and figure out a solution that works for as many people as possible.
I just want to let everybody know I have to head out, so I will see you guys later on. It was good to at least be here for portion of the Q&A.
Yes.
I didn't expect to originally be here because of work, but circumstances.
And
so
full disclosure,
I'll,
I am recording this. You're all going to be on YouTube
oh,
later.
good. I'll be able to fill in on the last of it. Well, I figured you guys would end up.
This will be on the DomiNATION YouTube channel. I will post the link probably sometime tomorrow when this goes live.
God damn it, Shifty. No, fuck you, sir. All right, I'm out. Bye.
All right, moving on to
My
next.
mom, I'm on TV.
Moving on to the next question. Moving on to the next question. Ella asks, have you ever considered giving out other items instead of Patreon dinos? Maybe an X amount of skins that are only available during event that some people may have missed out on. We have, but we have also always internally struggled to find things that seem like they're worthwhile, especially compared to, the dinos we're giving out. Something like limited time skins are certainly an option, but I mean, that's something we would love feedback from our Patreons on. Another suggestion that was put out there recently was like X amount of hexagons for Patreons, but that almost feels like pay to win,
Yeah.
So can't give hexagons to other
Don't
people.
have the ability.
And we literally don't have the command to give hexagons to other people yet. So again, angry tweet at Wildcard.
Threaten them.
Yeah. Some people
Tell
are.
them you want to
agreeing.
refund.
But Patreons especially. In fact, right now, if you want to do this, stop spamming general chat for a minute. Go to supporters chat. If you have ideas for things you would like to see as possible options and alternatives for Patreon monthly tames, please let us know and drop those in supporters
I
chat.
currently have over 14 Patreon dinos that I have yet to accept, and my husband behind me has something like 30. I'm not even kidding. He has almost 3 years worth of dinosaurs. Just because he's, we are okay. We're at a point where we don't want to.
I see a lot of people saying it's not pay to win. I didn't say it was pay to win. I said it kind of feels like pay to win. But I don't know. If the Patreons aren't necessarily opposed to it, and Wildcard gives us the command to do it in the first place, something like hexagons could be a potential option. It's up for discussion. Everything is up for discussion. Moving on, because we got a ways to go, and I want to try and breeze through some of these. Aiden asks, how do you become an admin? I've always been interested in reinforcing the rules, considering my detective skills and devotion to ARC. The short version of this is simple. First and foremost, you have to be at least 18 or older, and you have to meet all the prerequisites that we're looking for when we open applications. Those prerequisites, they can and will change depending on what the rest of the team and the community wants or needs at that time. Like, for example, this last round, we were looking for people who could speak fluent Spanish because we've had a lot of people come into the community who don't speak English as a first language and are primarily Spanish speakers. And we want to try to service those players as much as we can. So that's the short version, is how to become an admin is be 18 or older, have a clean track record, and put your app in. Everybody's considered. But we don't offer guarantees. We just offer opportunities.
We also don't always take applications. You have to watch for announcements when we
Yes.
are accepting.
Yeah, please don't spam our inbox with applications unless we announce we are taking applications.
If you spam us with applications and we're not taking applications, we'll just throw it away.
We'll blacklist you pretty much. We'll be like, yep.
Harsh. Y'all are savage. Y'all are fucking savage.
Y'all remember that one time they did it? Remember that one time they did it? Yeah. No. Well.
Dios mío. All right. I lost my spot. Where's the next question?
You need to get you some sticky notes.
All right,
Are we on Frappy?
Right. Yeah, I'm on Frappy. So Frappy asks a few questions. I'm gonna read these off and then I'll fire through them. If anybody else wants to chime in and do this real quick, we can do that. So, what made you guys want to be admins? For me, it was the fact that I've been here forever, and literally when I started, there were no admins. So I played for like 2 weeks straight. And then I tracked down Kakowin on Steam, and I just cold sent him a message. And I'm like, hey, you don't have any admins. Would you like one? Because I've got admin experience on Minecraft. And then he got back to me. He's like, well, you played like 48 hours on the servers in 2 weeks. So I guess I can give you a shot. What the hell? And he gave me a shot. And here I am. So.
And now look how that turned out.
Yeah, right? If it weren't for me, none of this would have been necessary. You're welcome. But yeah, so what made me want to be an admin was necessity, because I was sick of being a vigilante and having to I was literally, just as a player, watching chat for people who were being jerks. And I specifically remember one instance, and I'll give you the story, is there was somebody who was complaining about being picked up and dropped by other players with Argents. And I hopped on my Terra, and I flew over there, and I started picking these motherfuckers on Argents off and dropping them. I vigilante justice did these motherfuckers before I was even an admin. So
Made it
now
official.
you know why he does that in real life.
Yeah. And I'll give you another example. Is somebody, and this goes back to why we have the rules about not leaving your stuff on wandering and meeting in place. Some sociopath on the east coast of the island had left like 30 or 40 trikes and stegos in like a little 6x6 fence, and there was literally hundreds of them spawned on top of each other. It was so laggy. And I don't have admin at this point. So I grabbed my quets and I started literally rounding up anybody I could with the quets to come over there. We just started picking these fuckers up, carrying them into the ocean, and dropping them so the megalodons would eat them. But that's the kinds of things you had to do back then before we had admins. I ranted there.
Back in
Sorry.
his day.
I would have paid to see that.
Those were good
I would have
times.
paid to see you fly up over that hill and see all those stegos and trikes.
Next question on this one is: have you learned a lot since you became an admin? I learned how to actually do admin commands. No shit.
Oh my God, I've
my
learned so much.
my first day as an admin, we had a trio of people who came in and were just spamming racial slurs in the chat, and I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. I had kind of faked my way into the position, but saying, yeah, I know how to run ARC commands. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing at that point. And I accidentally I accidentally wiped somebody who wasn't one of the spammers because I was trying to deal with the spammers. That was a fun day.
I bet it was.
Yeah, well, it wasn't for them. What do you like about the community? I love the fact that you guys are so helpful and so genuine and are so unafraid of telling us, of keeping us in check. If we're doing something great, you'll be the first ones to tell us, and if we're fucking something up, you'll be the first ones to tell us, and I so appreciate that you guys are always real with us. It means a lot. Last question I'll answer, then I'll open this up to everybody else, is what was the first thing you tamed in ARC when you started? The first thing I tamed in ARC was actually the first time I ever played. This was before DomiNATION. This was actually... This is kind of when me and Suki started being interested in each other, actually. Because she was...
He tamed a Suki.
Because
he tamed a
a friend of her brother owned a server. And the first time I ever played, I was hanging out on the beach waiting for Suki to come find me. We were chatting on TeamSpeak. We were just friends at this point. And I'm sitting there chatting with her, trying to figure out where the hell I am. And I'm on the beach, I think over by Stonehenge on Island, and I happen to glance over, and there's just a Sarco sitting there staring at me. And we stare at each other for like what felt like 30 seconds, but it probably was a lot shorter than that. And then this fucking thing just moves, and I scream, and I run. And then I run right into Suki, who picks me up, and we knock this fucking Sarco out and drank it. And that was my first tame.
His first time was a Suki.
No, I was gonna say his first time was a wife, yeah.
No, that one took me like 4 years to tame, but moving on.
I don't really remember what started me on wanting to be an admin. I'll just be honest. I don't remember. I've been one for what? Almost. Well, I'm coming up on my 3 years as a player, so 2.5 years as an admin. But the first thing I tame is always we try to tame a trike, and it's either always named Mr. Bubbles or Mrs. Bubbles because that's my husband's.
Right on.
I think for me, I've been here about as long as Nast. I think Nast has me beat by maybe a month. But I do have pictures of Nast without his star. So
really? I don't even have that. Show me that shit.
Yeah.
Wait, what was I doing in those pictures? This isn't blackmail, is it?
So yeah, I mean, so I don't do much on the front end with everyone else. I'm mainly on the back end.
Giggity.
And the other admins can attest to this. My desire is to help everyone. So I've been here since December of 16. And since then, I've built a number of tools to try and help the admins make their jobs better.
Yes, your ticket system is made by this guy.
Yeah, so...
And I joined in January of 2017. So Zaf and I were players on the map at the same time.
Yeah, Alfie's a month after me. Fun fact, the ticket system, there's been about 6,000 tickets submitted since I first created it. So, good job.
By the way,
Thanks
guys,
for keeping us employed.
In general, can we also give Zaf some love in the chat for creating this awesome ticket system and making it so you guys don't just have to constantly be all like, admin! Like, for real.
Also, before we forget and people start logging out, remember guys, we do this as a volunteer position. You'd be surprised. Every once in a while someone comes up and they're like, you guys should get a raise.
It is not too late, Dre. Ask him in general.
why'd you have to give Dre the opportunity to ask a question?
If it's about feet, though, we're not answering it.
Yeah.
His questions are always weird.
Yeah. You'll double our pay. Double of nothing is nothing.
All right. Are we good to move on to the next one, or?
Well, Bog and Cowdog typed things. Can we
go ahead.
share?
Yeah, go ahead, by all means.
Bog, I think Bog is in. Did you want to?
Yeah, I can go. I became an admin because my play style is more towards the social stuff, but I really like helping people, and I don't necessarily have the materials in game or anything like that to be able to help with getting people out of boss caves, stuff like that. So this gave me a different way that I could help people by responding to tickets. The thing I've learned in the short time I've been an admin is how much work goes on behind the scenes. I didn't realize how much talking. Just today, getting ready for this question and answer, in the past few hours, there have been over 1,000 messages in admin chat getting ready for it. And that it's like that for everything. And it gave me a better insight into how the server works. My favorite part about this community is that everyone just kind of comes together and we all support each other. And you make basically online families. And my first tame was a saber-tooth that was trying to eat me through the door of my base. And then it got killed 30 minutes later to a seagull that destroyed the top part of my base.
Fucking seagulls.
He built up to the horse, Mackie.
Right?
I don't remember why I wanted to become an admin. It's been too fucking long. I just remember being told you're going to be an admin.
This is the same with me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Nuggy made me become an admin. I blame him.
Yeah.
I should have just said that.
With Nuggy, it was more a case of we were looking for somebody at that time that could fit in with the younger people. Most of us are older and had jobs, and we were looking for somebody that fit into the under 20 crowd.
I was baby. But yeah, my very first tame was a shark on island, and only reason I tamed it is because I watched somebody else shooting at it, and I felt really bad. I thought it was trying to eat them, and I went over and started punching it, and it got knocked out under my tribe. Yeah, they were nice enough to let me keep it, and I wound up breeding sharks for like 6 months on island, and that was a shit show and a half because I didn't understand breeding, so I just had like 36 sharks in the water that were just all unmating all the time. This was prior to any of the rules about not leaving dinos on wander, and I remember logging in one day, and I think it was Alfie was just sitting in my base, and she goes, "What the hell?" But yeah, the favorite thing about the community though is the fact that even if you've been gone for 2 years and you come back, 9 times out of 10, people will recognize your name because people here they actually act like a community. It's not just a random online forum. People actually know who you are.
Yeah, this is a place where everybody knows your name. All right, because we all know that making your way in the world today takes everything you got.
All right. But no,
Isaiah.
if you guys want to know how much some of these people have touched our lives, go over to the event map, and in the corner there is the memorial. And I kid you not, I cannot walk into that building without crying.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are real people who have touched all of our lives in some way.
Yep.
I mean,
I think a perfect example of that would be the fact that there are people here when Akara passed who had never met her in person and still opened up their wallets and gave actual money to that family in their time of need.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the strongest and best examples I can give as how good this community is.
110%.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely the players in the community that make this community what it is.
Yeah.
And
I was looking around for my
Still
puppy,
here.
and
yeah,
I was looking around for my puppy, and I think she's asleep with my son.
All right, Cowdog, go ahead and read yours off. We gotta move on here in a minute.
I'll make it snappy.
Okay.
So I wanted to become an admin because I really enjoy helping others the best that I can. I do bring a lot of knowledge to the team that really hasn't been exposed yet, but will be soon.
I thought you said
of course, with
malice.
being- Huh?
I thought you said malice.
No, not at all. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, whoa.
Now she is, but
No, with being at the CC and all, I mean, it's just kind of like, um, we're gonna start doing maybe some taming sessions and teaching those who don't know how to tame certain dinos. Take them out on a taming safari, so to speak,
That'll be
which will be
fun.
yeah. So
Road trip.
road trip, absolutely. So that'll be fun, and that's something I'm going to lead up eventually here. And then also, the reason why I like this community so much is the player base. There's so many players that have been here for a long time, who've been here a lot longer than me. I've been here for 2.5 years, and I have stuck here. And I've had many opportunity to go to another cluster. One of my friends, he owns a cluster, but it's PvP. Boo. So I stay here because I like the PvE aspect, and I've gained many friends over the years, and I consider my new admin friend peers to be my friends as well. Um, to
Ew, no.
continue on, my favorite dinosaur is of course the Therizinosaur. If you all hadn't known that,
Tickle chicken.
The fear turkey.
the fear turkey. And then, of course, my first dino that I ever tamed was a trike because that is like the best first tame that you could possibly have. So,
Okay, we're just like twins in so many ways. It's freaking me out.
See,
right.
told you I wasn't wrong.
You're right.
Moving on to the next question because we got a little bit of ways to go, and I'm running late for a thing, but we're all right. Brainiac asks, would y'all be willing?
He's grabbing wife aggro.
Yes. Would y'all be willing to work to remove the Magnosaurs, damning other tames with the fireballs, or even removing friendly fire, period? I've never used it except to bully my friends, and it seems like an inconvenience. That is something that I think the knee-jerk reaction to, if we have the option to do it, because I don't even know if we do, to be honest. Again, Wildcard doesn't always give us all the tools we would like or would need for our job here. But if the community as a whole would want friendly fire to be turned off, so like for example, you couldn't kill your friend by shooting him in the face, or you couldn't like accidentally set each other on your tribe mates or your tames on fire with like a wyvern blast, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Speaking for myself.
Only downside to that people would have to remember is you would no longer be able to use your wyverns to kill your tames you're trying to kill off.
So
you would have to take them to the volcano and drop them in the lava.
So the short answer, Brainiac, is I don't know if we will have the option to remove magma source from damaging other tames. I have a feeling that that's going to be one of those things that's locked in hard code with all the other friendly fire aspects. If we're going to disable that, it would likely be a decision made by the community as a whole. So can't answer that. It's up to you guys, based probably.
I'll just say I'd be more nervous about that because if you take away an easy way to kill off babies, we're going to have more babies and more dinos.
That's a good point. I would encourage you guys to cryo them into the volcano then. But again, that's something we as a community can talk about and figure out what we would like to do later. Giga asks, will there be a verdict on what is to be done with the bugged, exploited zero-speed Feroxes soon? Simply put, that depends on if, when, and how Wildcard fixes the underlying issue and the bug. Because right now, it makes zero sense for us to penalize you guys as players for something that Wildcard broke and hasn't fixed yet. Because the only way we could actually address that and stop these bug exploited zero speed Feroxes would be to remove all the Feroxes you guys have right now and disable the spawns. And that's not fair to you guys. You guys should be able to play the game, especially if you guys have already had these things. We shouldn't punish you guys for Wildcard's mistake. But I want to caveat that with the hope is, of course, that Wildcard will fix the issue and maybe even retroactively fix the stat issues. If they don't and they fix it, that's something we as a community may have to sit down and have a conversation about later on how to fix, and that could even result in something we've had to do similar with snafus like this before, would be replacing Feroxes, which is a pain in the ass. So what I would encourage people to do, short term, would be if you're going to breed Feroxes, you may want to monitor the situation and you may want to consider not going all in on that breeding line. Because if they fix it tomorrow or next week, or even 6 months from now, it depending on how we as a community decide to address that, you may be losing a lot of work. But I know that seems like a non-answer, but there's only so much we can do to solve the problem if Wildcard doesn't fix the problem. You know what I mean? Again, Angry Toot Wildcard, fix that shit.
One of the things we have to think
for pretties. Go ahead.
one of the things you have to look at is with all of these DLCs as a history. I've been through all of them since SC. One of the things you have to be aware of, every time they drop a new DLC, they fiddle with the dinos for the next 6 months after they've dropped it. They will all be changed and everything will be different. And, you know, I wouldn't go all in making a giant breeding project.
Yep.
I would collect several because you may have to kill some of them off because they make them where they won't be able to breed with some of the others or something else.
Yep.
So just gather your stock and be ready for when they finally open things up.
Yes. Or get their shit in a row. It's fixed, sorted. Yes. All right. Jez asks, will events be canceled due to threat of the coronavirus? Asking for a friend. Most likely not. However, if swamp fever spreads across the servers, we may have to postpone events until that gets under control.
I did throw out maybe we can provide lesser antidotes or health brews.
I'd be okay with that. I would encourage everybody while this virus is running roughshod to make hazmat suits and refrain from picking up or carrying animal feces.
Although I gotta say, this just dropped like 5 seconds ago. If anyone else had that little pop up, I thought it was cool that Discord just expanded streaming from 10 to 15 people to help groups come together. So that's a kind of a cool tool to take advantage of, I think.
Absolutely. Good on Discord. Absolutely.
Hosting in general, my plague doctor chic. What?
There are some colleges that are now using Discord too to hold classes.
Yeah, I was thinking if I could.
Hell yeah.
And on a lighter note, remember to please wash your hands
Yeah.
and watch your dinos' paws.
And
This will help in solving any problems with spreading the virus.
If you don't already wash your hands, you're disgusting.
My bad. I'm kidding. But for real, I know we're making a lot of jokes about this right now, but seriously, everybody stay safe, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.
Why don't you make me?
Would you please take care of yourself and each other? Nah. Moving on.
Nuggy's patient 0. We already know.
Yeah,
that.
moving on. Anon says, several of us have heard that other clusters have more people, more mods, and less lag. We know nothing on what it costs to run these servers a month, but we do know that Kakowin gets over $1,000 a month, only because that's what's on the Patreon website. Can he upgrade stuff on his end to help with the lag issue, or are the things we've been getting told not true? I can tell you that there has been a plan for several months now that we are actually in the process of. Kakowin has been putting that money to good use. We actually just recently bought our first server that we as a community now own. We're not renting the server, we own it. It's ours, and it's here in the US, so the servers on that, the online servers are on that physical server here in the country. And it's my understanding, again, I'm not a tech guy, I don't know all the jargon or all the specs. That's not my my venue, my area of expertise. But what I'm told is this is a pretty big, beefy server that could comfortably handle 4 servers. If you really needed to cram shit, it could hold 7. Right now, unless I misunderstand it, right now Genesis is on there, and I don't know if anything else is. Again, I don't have access to the back end. But go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I think he's moved SE and Aberration, I think, but I don't know. I've not been paying attention.
But I will tell you that that's the start of the plan. We are looking to upgrade the equipment, to buy servers that are closer to the majority of the player base, and to own the servers, so that money can then, instead of being used to pay rental fees, once we get the foundation laid here of owning our own servers, we can then continue to upgrade our equipment to make things better and stronger and buy more servers. And just, it's taken us time to get to this point, but now you are guys going to see in the coming months, things are going to only get better because we've taken that big first step. So I guess
there was a question that I had seen.
Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry for talking over.
You're fine.
So I had seen one of the questions earlier, or somebody had made some comments earlier about how the quality of the boxes were and such and such and such.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody understands most servers are designed to be able to handle at least 4 comfortably on it at one time.
You're talking
even the ones that you rent from a company. Now, this being said, if you overload that with a megaton of mods that require a lot of backup to unpack and physically run, this lags and causes some issues with the server. And it's mostly it's loading times that it causes the issues.
Original Ragnarok, Patreon Ragnarok. Anybody?
F's in chat for Patreon modded Ragnarok.
The
OG.
original
Yeah,
one.
you guys don't remember, but I would literally load in, go make me breakfast, go get a shower, walk the dog, come back, and I might get loaded in. It was pretty heavy,
Mods slow
and
everything
that
way
was
down.
on my potato.
So this is one of the things that is being taken care of. So, and with the new box, it does have an expanded amount of what we call RAM, which is what is important for running these things. So it has expanded, and it should be handling these things without too much trouble. I know people are complaining about Genesis right now, but I'm beginning to think that some of the problems y'all are having with Genesis is actually in the coding of Genesis itself. And Wildcard, of course, is continuing to tie all of the spaghetti code that's in there up into feather knots. So we're just going to have to wait until they quit fucking around with the matrix so that it runs right.
Remember, they're not bugs, they're features. All right.
If all those fucking features worked correctly.
Right? Yeah. Moving on to. You know what the worst thing ever would be is if Bethesda and Wildcard made a game together.
Shut up.
Stop it.
No.
Bad Nas.
Moving on to the next question. Anon asks, I've heard several people ask who is the head admin. We always get told the same thing. Nast and Alfie are kind of the main ones, but there is no head admin. Some of us feel that there should be one head admin that has nothing to do with in-game situations. Their sole job should be to police the other admins and not leave it up to each other to police. Someone that any player can come to without fear of reprisals. Let's face it, those who have been here long enough know which admin to contact about certain players or certain issues, and that's not okay. The one admin will make sure something is done, and the other admin may brush it under the rug or not even reply to your issue. That's a valid concern. And you will have that concern with any leadership group, no matter where you are or where you come from. You will always have that concern that the people at the top aren't actually doing what they need to do or what is in your best interests. The reason that we don't have a person above all the other admins in any official title. Yes, the title senior admin has gotten thrown around to describe me or Alfie on occasion. But the reason why at the end of the day we consider ourselves to all be on the same page is because if one of us is put above the others, what happens if that one person then becomes a problem? Then where do you go?
We've had that issue several times before, and we've tried to rectify it quickly, where we've had admins that have gone against the grain and have actually undermined the entire server, and we've hopefully rectified it and retroactively nullified it, but sometimes we don't catch it.
But
We've had several that the admin team can name silently.
Yeah. And
now, one of the things we try to do, guys, and this just comes from me for everybody, one of the things we try to do is we all try to work at this as a team. We do have a core group of the admins that we consider the seniors or the ones that have been here a while and have a lot of expertise. But that's not cutting out our new admins either, because they're the ones that are on the ground every day with you on the servers. It is their job for you to come to them, bring your problems to them, and talk to them. They will, if they don't know the answer, they'll come get one of us. If we don't know the answer, we'll go find it.
Yep. And I also want to say, because I mean, that same Anon said in their question that there are certain people that they feel like you know which admins to talk to about certain people or whatnot. For better or for worse, and I'm gonna for better or for worse, you're always going to have people. You're always going to have groups. You're going to have, for lack of a better word, you're going to have cliques. People who are friends with other people, and you're going to have people who don't get along. But the one thing and I'm sure we have always tried to do as a team is try and be fair and try and be unbiased. And of course, we can always do better. Every team, every group, everybody in a leadership position can always do better. And we strive to do better. So I would simply encourage, and I would want to assure everybody and anybody that if you feel you are not being treated fairly, or that you feel that somebody is not handling a situation in a way that you feel is fair or that it should be handled, please reach out. We want to hear your concerns. We want this to be a place where you guys feel like you can come and talk to the team without hesitation and without a fear of reprisal. Because, excuse me, because at the end of the day, everybody on this team should be held to the standard of being able to understand that no one person and no one group of people is bigger than this community. Period. Full stop. There have been people on the admin team previously that did not adhere to that, that thought that they were bigger than the rest of the team or bigger than this entire community, and they were shown the door. I don't care who you are. If I ever start acting like that, if I ever get my head up my ass and think my shit don't stink and I'm treating people here in a way they shouldn't be treated, I fully expect somebody to give me a reality check and or show me the door. Because that is the standard, and that is what it needs to be. Period. Full stop. No excuses. And I think everybody on the team can agree with that.
And that being said, we are still human, so we have our days.
Yes.
And there's been times where I've told people I'm invisible for a reason. Normally it's still leave me messages when they know that I'm not around, because they can, they come to us. And I try to be blunt sometimes. It's like, okay, now it's not a good time. But there's admin team members on that can assist you if it's that time.
I'll tell you what, I mean, Papa Smurf asks a great question. Who do we report that to? If nothing else, send Kako in a DM. He is the owner. He's the one person who's above all of us.
Actually, I was just starting to type on our little notes list,
Mhm.
and I had kind of said this before. It'd be nice to set up a way for people to say something anonymously. I mean, I'm fine with people going to Cocoon or whatever, I just think that might be honestly possibly a slower turnaround than somebody might want.
You know what?
And
That's
so,
not
yeah,
a
if
bad
there was
shout.
a safe way that people, because like this, we had people post anonymously their questions here, so we can do it. And so people can say, like, yeah, to do that so that we can talk about it without feeling like, oh, this player I have issues with. It's just like, no, there is an issue. Let's look at it together.
That's a good idea. Zap, is that something you could work into the support ticket, like a way to anonymously leave a message for the admin team?
Like
Yeah.
Suggestion box.
Yeah. And people can put their names in just like they did for this. But if they have something sensitive and they don't know how it'll be taken or reacted to,
Sure.
Yeah, I'll add it to my to-do list.
All right.
Oh, wait,
Perfect.
but then we just got to make sure we know how to get a message back to them if we don't know who they are. But at least it's something we can take up. Maybe we can't get back to them, but it's something that we can look at.
Well, I can implement it on the website, on the ticket website, so none of their personal information is passed directly to us, but our response is passed back directly to them. I could do something like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
and also, Urigiga also says it feels like public channels require the admin to answer in specific ways. You can hardly have a complicated rules discussion because everybody and their dog will go off half-cocked. It'd be nice to have a suggestion box. I fully agree with that. I think a suggestion
Yeah.
box would be good. I think we need to roll
Yes, that's exactly
Wow.
what we just
Yep.
said.
Yep,
So
yep.
that's wonderful.
That's a
You're
good shout.
Giga, you get credit.
He gets a cookie.
Urigiga, 5 points to whatever house you're in. I don't know. All right, moving on to the next question. Reading through Discord yesterday at the time now, and noticed NAS say there's little chance for a PvP server. A lot of us want one, and that makes us feel like we have no say, especially the patrons for whom without there would be no servers. We pay for these servers to run, and we feel like we don't get a say in anything unless the admins think of it first and bring it to us for feedback. It's time that changes. We want our ideas to be heard and considered. I absolutely agree. And I think that that's part of the reason why we need to get that suggestion box out immediately. And we need to frankly, we need to do better about talking to you guys more often.
And the thing with the PvP, and I've been here for the 2 iterations of it. The first time we lost 3 admins in a very bad way. Like they fought in if they were in the same room, they probably would have been punching each other.
Yeah.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
nasty. It was knockdown, drag out.
It was toxic.
Toxic.
Yeah.
The second time, it just kind of, over the course of a weekend, somebody no-lifed it, we'll be honest, PvP, and they sat there and they raised 3 wyverns and they owned the PvP map. It was nothing, like nobody could do anything. Like as soon as you got up to a certain point, they wiped you.
Here's the thing I'll
And
say
they lived
regarding
over there.
here's the thing I'll say regarding the PvP map, because I feel the formula we've been discussing for feels like ages at this point would work. But the reality is, I feel like the last experience we had, in part because of what Zai just said, left a very bad taste in Kakowin's mouth. It's that simple. I don't think he's 100% against the idea. I just think he's hesitant because he doesn't want a repeat performance. So what I would say to those players in our community who would love to see a PvP server out there is let him hear your voice, because me talking about it on you guys' behalf, I'm just one person. I'm easy to ignore. And I want to preface this. If you DM Kakowin about a PvP server, do not spam him repeatedly, and please, for the love of fuck and your own well-being, be civil and concise and polite.
And for those of you wondering, my tribe name over there was Meat, because that's what I was.
And again, if you
I
guys
did not play very well.
And if you guys feel like your voices aren't being heard, again, we are putting that suggestion box out there. Zap's going to get that rolled out. And if you guys feel like your voices aren't being heard, again, I would encourage you to DM Kakowin. Take it directly to the owner. Because he's the guy who, at the end of the day, makes the decisions on all of this stuff.
Also, there was a moment, I know there was something wrong with the server. I don't know if voting, what was it, but we tried an SOTF. Remember that? It lived for a weekend.
Yeah, it wasn't Survival of the Fittest. It was that modded version that rolled out.
Dragon Punk.
Dragon Punk, but it was bugged. It was bugged.
It was real bad. It worked once, and then the whole server just crapped
Yeah.
itself.
Okay.
Kit, to answer a more organized PvP, the idea we had for the PvP server would be to prevent wipes. It would be full PvP, but it would be Prim Plus, so nobody gets tech or the high-end stuff. It would have offline raid protection enabled so that when somebody goes offline, like 10 minutes afterwards, their shit becomes indestructible, so you can't get offline raided. And it's an Arc-Apocalypse server that wipes every 30 days, so we can change maps, and an Alpha Tribe doesn't rule the roost forever. That was the concept for the PvP server we're talking about.
Along with limiting how many people are in each tribe.
Yeah. Maybe having
Yeah.
smaller tribes and no transfers in or out, so you can't bring OP stuff in and squash day one. Okay.
Right, it would be its own animal, which that would work. But yes, again, Kakowin lost two or three. I still forget. I want to say 2 or 3 good admins over something that shouldn't have even happened.
All right, almost
So
done here.
he's a little bit.
Gonna try and speed run through the rest of these. Anon says, I don't expect any of my questions or suggestions to be heard today. They might piss people off, and that's why I've chosen to stay anonymous. I respect that. ARC in this community is a place where people go to feel accepted, and almost on a daily basis, there is public shaming by admins. No one deserves that kind of treatment. You should talk to people in DMs instead of making them look like fools in front of people. I'm not saying we need to be some safe space kind of thing, but I shouldn't have a fellow player cry to me because an admin shamed them in chat in front of everyone. I almost said something about it in general chat one day because it bothered me so bad, but I knew it would start something that didn't need to be started. You're not wrong, Anon. You are absolutely 100% not wrong, and I agree with you. You talk about safe spaces and say that you don't think this should be a safe space. Respectfully, I disagree. I think that this needs to be a place where our players can come and feel like they don't have to worry about someone making shit harder for them than it needs to be. I think we, as the admin team, need to hold ourselves to a higher standard and need to make sure that we are treating you guys and everybody with the respect and the candor that you deserve, quite frankly. That kind of public shaming, putting people on blast when things, as you said, should be done in private, there's no excuse for it. It is unacceptable. We can and we should do better. And I know that, speaking just for myself here, there have been days where I have let stuff outside of this affect my ability to perform here. I'm not trying to use that as a way to justify it. I'm just saying that's what happened. And that's not right. And I need to do better on that. And I will do better on that because you guys deserve that. So there's really not anything I can say to that, we can say to that, other than we are going to do everything we can to do better because you guys deserve that. We owe you guys that.
And I think a part of it too is that we're just people, and so we need communication to go both ways. We need you guys to tell us, like, hey, this is making me uncomfortable. Is there another way you could say this? Because honestly, I think when things get typed, both sides. I just had this happen on the island actually, where somebody was like, fuck everybody on this server, and I was like, oh, okay, are we having issues? And it from one perspective, a lot of people were like, ban him, ban Hammer, because it sounded like he was coming after the admins. But instead, I tried to slow it down, explain to him how he sounded, and so I think sometimes, and he was just like, no, I didn't mean it that way. Who the heck would ever take it that way? And I was like, well, some people did. So please let us know. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes we're being assholes because we're human, but sometimes we just don't know until you tell us, until you go, like, you know what, when you said it that way, I wasn't okay with that. So, let us know. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. So,
So please remember, we're just people.
yeah, I
We're
mean,
not getting paid for this. This isn't a job. This is a volunteer position.
yeah,
Although we do sometimes, I call it a job because to me, it, even a volunteer position is something that I expect to do.
Yeah, we made a commitment.
yes,
Yeah,
we know
it's
the
a
score.
commitment.
But we can still do better, and part of that is we need you guys to help hold us accountable for that. And if we're not treating you in a way that we should, or you feel you're being treated unfairly, please let us know that. If we are trying, if a conversation is being had with you in a public forum, and you'd rather have the conversation privately, just say so, and it'll happen. And one of the only reasons that typically happens with the public getting a hold of, and this is another thing you guys don't see very often, is 9 times out of 10 we'll try and reach out to that person in Discord DMs, and maybe they have their settings set up where they can't receive DMs from people outside their friends list, or we just can't get these people to respond to us. At that point, if we need to talk to this person, what other choice do we have? So there's more going on, but
Right. And there's a difference between someone that's broken the rules 20 times and we can't get a hold of them and we can't get a hold of them. We've got a couple issues like that right now where we're getting to the point where we're really tired of trying to get a hold of these people. And we've exhausted all of our ways except for sitting down and saying, okay, look, what's going on? Why are you guys.
But I think point taken that we will try to be more mindful
absolutely,
of our tone and how it might be felt, because it's a game.
yes, this is meant to be fun above all else. So we are going to try and double down on that for you guys, because again, that's what we need to do, and you deserve nothing less. All right. Moving on to the next thing. Jace asks, "Are you planning on adding any more mods to any of the servers?" I can say we are always open to suggestions about new mods for the Patreon servers. Obviously, we don't add mods to the public servers to help keep them, stable online and open up to everybody. At this point, there's no plans at this time that I'm aware of to add any more mods to the servers. But again, if you guys have suggestions, throw them in general, or once that suggestion box kicks up and Zaf makes an announcement about it, fire away. We would love to hear about ideas for the Patreon server for additional mods. I think we're just about there. Let me see here. Anon says, don't want to offend anyone or make them mad, but the fact is that the Patreons help keep the server going, but only have 3 Patreon maps. Would it be possible to get more Patreon servers to help with lag, because people might move and spread out more? Also, would a limit on gacha farm size help the server lag? Opening more Patreon servers is, of course, always a possibility, especially since we're now buying our servers and giving ourselves more room to work with, I think you're going to see more of that uptick down the line, at least potentially. As it relates to the gacha farm thing, that goes back to the majority of lag coming from the amount of tames on the maps. So I don't think we want to impose a limit, because again, we don't want to tell you guys how to play the game. We don't want to over micromanage you guys, because that's not fun for us, and it's even less fun for you. But more Patreon servers is definitely a possibility. We actually internally, like I said, we were talking about Crystal Isles a little bit earlier and how we might be rolling out a public map for that. There was a conversation about how if we should also have a Patreon only Crystal Isles. But that again will determine, that will be dependent on both community feedback and what the map's going to look like closer to that time. Could somebody unmute Undead Tank? They gotta go, please. Appreciate that.
Done. Got
Thank you. I think only got a few questions left here, which is good because my voice is starting to go.
You're just getting sexier.
Thank you.
it.
Kolobak says, first of all, thanks for a great experience so far. Despite really bad lag recently, the overall gameplay has been awesome, and the players are great too. Thank you for that. So, too much fog on the island. Can this be dialed down a bit, or is it outside of server controls? And can unused structures that players haven't logged into be subject to auto-decay? Thank you. Simply put, we as admins can't do much with the weather effects because the commands that we as admins have access to are limited. Wildcard hasn't developed very many options, and the ones they have, they don't really do much. Like, for example, we can start the weather on island, but we can't stop it. We can run a command to make it rain, but we can't stop it once it rains. So if fog starts, we can't turn it off. Although now that I say that, I do vaguely remember them saying there was something about the fog in patch notes in like the server files. So that might be worth looking into. I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me. I could even be wrong. But we could have that discussion if that's an option. As for unused structures being put on auto decay, we actually have enabled a structure auto decay on all the things that we can in the game. But Wildcard hasn't done it on all structures yet. Things like campfires, sleeping bags, spike walls, pipes, cables, dinos, leashes, those don't auto-decay. Even if their timer hits 0 when it says demo allowed, they will just fucking sit there until the end of time unless somebody comes up and demos them. And we have no way of enabling that. So until Wildcard does that, we can't do anything with that. That's the short version of that. Gene Wilder says, will we ever look into putting cosmetic mods such as CKF into the general cluster? Like I said, at this time we don't put mods on the public cluster. Patreon, though, is a possibility. I'm not familiar with the CKF mod. Can anybody look that up and tell me what it is?
Yeah,
That's the capital. That's the one that's on the patch map.
Oh, shows you how often I get over there. All right.
It's an awesome one.
Okay. We've already talked about that.
And yes, I'll bring this up because real quick, because Staff's mentioned this in admin chat. There was what was it, about 2 months ago, before Genesis, my dinosaurs were claimed and killed. And so in a moment, I suspended events because I was angry, and we talked about it. We reinstated the events.
Yep.
And now you see the admins all have the nice little admin tag on the back. Most of them do. Of their, that was a moment. That was one of those moments. I was having a bad day. I log in, and these animals I have had for almost 3 years, somebody claimed and killed. And they were Spanish speakers, and they tried to, I don't know how much of this was true. We stumbled through a conversation for half an hour, and then I was like, okay, here's your punishment. And they said, okay, well, then we're going to go to another server. Thanks for nothing, in perfect English. And I was, you could hear my hair sizzling. I was so mad. I was so mad at that tribe. I was like, why did you guys make me suffer through translating for the last, half an hour? Hence why we needed admins that could speak Spanish.
Yep. All right. Anon asks, why did you change the date of the Q&A? Because the change was kind of last minute. And you do know that people make plans to attend, but then change, so the plans are out the window. I mean, come on, you post a change at 2:30 in the morning. Most won't see until the next morning. You should at least make the change 24 hours in advance. That's fair. And typically we try and do that. However, like I said, we try our best to do things in both a timely and easy manner, but we also try to include as many members of the team on things like that in the process as possible when we can. The sad reality is these things take time and can sometimes lead to us getting a general consensus on something at weird times. Like for the Q&A, we got the majority of the team to agree to the time change early in the morning, and we wanted to get that message out there as quickly as possible, but we also didn't just want to do it without hearing from at least the majority of the team. So we can try and do better about being more aware, I guess, of our structure and our timetable on these kinds of things. That's something we can strive to work on, because always trying to learn, always trying to get better at this kind of stuff. But like I said, that was kind of an odd one, because real life gets in the way of the best laid plans sometimes, and that's what happened here with the schedule change real quick last minute. And again, I'm sorry for that for anybody that inconvenienced, but necessity is the invention of all fuck ups, as a saying goes. What else? Okay. Anon says, how come there are so many admins and only a few help when a request is submitted? That's a great question. I'd like to give you guys some numbers in answer to this. At this time, right now, there's 17 admins, okay? Removing them from the equation, that puts still 1,220 other people who aren't admins here in the Discord. So what that would mean simply is that if things were to be divided up where each person's assigned a set an equal number of players per admin, each admin would be accountable for approximately 175 people. That's... obviously we can agree that's kind of an untenable workload. And considering, like was mentioned earlier, that we're volunteers, we're not paid to do this, we just do the best we can, while also trying to juggle our own lives outside of the game and away from our keyboards. You know, there's only so much we can do. I know it's also easy to lose sight of the fact that we're people behind the long-winded announcements and pixels, but we are. We got jobs and families and other obligations that while we love you guys, we love this community, we love this, those things in real life come first, and they have to. But the sad reality is that there's sometimes going to be waits and delays, despite how many of us there are. And that can't be helped. We try to help you guys out as best we can, and sometimes there's a wait, and sometimes we don't get to you guys in time, and that sucks. And we're sorry.
And I
for
think
that.
it also seems like the question is saying, like, it seems like only a few people do everything. But I think you guys just heard from Zaf. I bet a lot of you haven't ever heard Zaf speak, but the other admins hear from Zaf a lot because he does so much at the back end. I mean, he's one of those people that makes everything work, fixes all of the problems. You know, Alfie too is like, just has these years of experience, and some of you don't hear her voice all the time, or what. There's a difference between people who do tickets, people who are always in game and there to lend a hand. I mean, there's just all different ways that admins have strengths and give something to the community. It's not all tickets.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier as well, there's been times where I've been so tired, I've been green and forgot and gone to bed. So to you guys, I'm still on, and well, Zai's on normally at night. She works night shift. Why isn't she answering my question? Because I am passed out. Or I've played for 3 hours and looked down and like, oh, I'm not even labeled as. It happens. We're human. We have lives. I have a child. I have a dog. I have a husband. I have life. And at any point in time, I could step away from this keyboard, and even though it says I'm green, I'm who knows where.
Yep. So.
Kit, I have fallen asleep while in the middle of typing something.
Sorry, that's not funny, but it is.
Yes.
It's a mom thing.
All right, and I believe that's everything.
If there's anything we missed, please feel free, either to put in a ticket with it, or when Zaf gets the suggestion box up and running.
Yes.
Clearly, this went on a really long time. So if we missed anything, it was not for lack of trying. It's just because there's a lot to talk about. And I think one thing we've talked about is wanting to do this more in the future.
I concur.
What about leaving this up so they can continue to add some more? We'll just kind of put like a line where we stopped at with these questions, and then they can continue to put them on this form.
I'd be here for that. I am totally down for making this a thing on the regular.
There are 2 more questions in that
Wait, there are?
sheet, by the way. Yes, there were 2 more added.
Did you guys
afterwards.
add more while I was going?
They're at the very bottom. One says from Anon.
Let me refresh. Okay, those were not there a minute ago. I refreshed.
Well,
Hold on.
Oh.
I haven't refreshed this page since we started. Okay, my bad. I didn't realize there was questions added while we were going. I apologize. We're not done yet. Okay, Anon says, I think we should consider changing the rule about building on rare resources, at least for PAT servers. We have TPs to metal, cave, crystal, obsidian already, and it's easy for us to access. I think for PAT servers, it should either be on a case-by-case situation, like an admin comes to the area you want to build on and okays it, or the rule be up to 5 or more nodes instead of 3. There are a lot of really great places to build, and we can't because of 3 metal nodes that no one is ever going to farm. You know what? That's a fair point. And if we're talking about... Go ahead.
One thing with that too, those teleporters no longer exist, are all removed.
That's another. Okay, that's a good point too.
But it's also you can fly to them. I see what they're saying. You still have the access to.
That's the thing. So if we're talking about just for the Pat servers, I think that the Patreons, we should put that in front of them and they should vote on it. I wouldn't be opposed to that in the slightest. If that's something the patrons want to do as a group, okay. Does that sound agreeable?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cool. Easy potential fix. Thank you, Anon, for your question. The real final question from, once again, Anon. This guy was on... Anon, you were on fire. Thank you, sir or madam, or any configuration in between. Will we ever have an 18-plus server, either normal or Pat? I'm a little concerned what you would want to do on an 18-plus ARC server if you're asking for one. Oh my.
That would be very.
I can say
That would be very hard to control.
I can say at this time we have no plans for an 18-plus server because the thought had never crossed our minds. I'm a little curious what the community as a whole would want from an 18-plus server. So we're going to wrap this up here. That's the question I'll pose to you who are still here listening, to the community. Would you want an 18 or an older server? And if so, what would you want on it and what would you want it used for?
Your giga water up my nose. Thank you.
Please keep your answers in the Discord within the terms of service. We don't want to have to ban you.
Comment of
Just
the
read
night.
your giga nut. Yeah, I just read.
If this is after the normal hours of 10 and your children are still up, please put those comments in the
Experimenting with that field.
It's just 18 and over.
You're a
right.
Giga. I only have one thing to say.
Answer.
I only have one thing to say to You're a Giga's comment. Bam.
No.
Oh my god.
Just the Yoshi tongue sound right now. Just bam. I'm killing everybody.
Here goes my other lung. Oh.
All right, everybody, that does conclude tonight's questions and answer recording session. I have to go because I'm late for a thing.
Send hearts to Nast for all his hard work in chat.
But this was a lot of fun.
Suki's gonna kick his ass.
I am gonna go drink all the water because I have to talk for another 4 hours playing D&D. Woo! Good times.
Suki's gonna kick his ass now,
This
guys.
has been a good time. Remember, don't leave right away so we can unmute you. And after I leave, we are going to open the floor to general chat and conversation here if any of the other admins are still wanting to stick around.
He doesn't want to be. He doesn't trust you guys.
That's not it. Shut up. That is categorically false, or I wouldn't have just talked for 3 hours. Okay, so you can just shut the fuck up. Go ahead and start unmuting people if you guys you're already on it. Perfect. But we will definitely be doing this again, guys. Thank you all so much for your time and for your questions. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And
Stop it. Stop it.
I'm gonna stop recording now. Bye.